Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. We have a great show for you today. First, well, when you're a celebrity like Luigi Mangione, everybody wants to know what you're doing in prison. Bryan Kohberger is trying to convince the judge that all the evidence should go away, and if body language is an indicator, it's not looking good for Kohberger. At least one woman says Richard Allen is not the bridge guy. A Colorado man does some terrible things to some animals. A road rager is found under his bed. This day in legal history and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below. Make sure you hit that little bell for notifications. It looks like YouTube has changed their algorithms again, so hit that bell just to make sure you know that we put up new content. Also, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. All right, please go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service today. You're going to be happy that you did. When you sign up for that background subscription service, you're going to be able to do as many background searches as you desire on anyone here in the United States. And you are going to get a plethora of information about that particular individual. It's going to give you information about their social media accounts. It's going to give you emails, phone numbers associated with them. So, maybe you think your spouse is acting a little weird. You do a background check on him, and suddenly you find out he has like 10 different emails. You may want to check it out. Now, you can also find out if somebody has a criminal history. You can find out if they're married, if they're divorced. You can find out if they're on one of those public registries. Go to crimetalksearch.com so you can search everything on the internet and not just going to the local courthouse, so to speak, for every jurisdiction to find out something about the person you're looking for. CrimeTalkSearch.com. You're going to be happy you did. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for Friday, January 24th, 2025. And first on the docket, that's right, Luigi Mangione. Now, when you're a high-profile defendant, everybody wants to know what everybody is thinking about people. And since there's been no real news about any developments in his case, since nothing's really going on yet, since he hasn't gone back for any type of an arraignment or preliminary hearing, people are digging deep. They're talking to people that were housed with Luigi Mangione in custody. Now, normally, most people in this federal detention center are going to get their little orange jumpsuits. But no, he is getting what they call a turtle suit. It's a little blue padded setup used primarily for prisoners vulnerable to committing self-harm, according to inmates that were in the facility when Mangione was there with them. And every time he's escorted from his cell, D block, gets a lockdown. Because apparently, when you're a high-profile person, somebody could either try to take you out so that they get the fame and notoriety. But in this particular case, they're taking all precautions to make sure Luigi Mangione is healthy by the time that he gets to court. Apparently, when the inmates are watching TV and they're discussing matters of Luigi Mangione, they have been flashing lights from the cell so the people outside could see that they were, paying attention to them. Anyway, apparently the warden has said, or the superintendent, I guess is his technical name, has threatened everyone with time in the hole if they yelled from their cell or blinked their lights for the media ever again. Now, apparently Mangione's notoriety softened the amount of oppression the guards would usually dispense because they wanted something from him. They wanted to share stories with coworkers and friends and family, and everybody wants a piece of the biggest crime story. Apparently, everybody in the detention center says, hey, maybe I'll get my 15 minutes of fame, write a book, maybe get a few bucks out of it, make a TikTok video or what have you. Or, I don't know, talk about it on your podcast. But anyway, Luigi Mangione is the man of the hour until he's not, until the next big story comes along indeed. All right, next on the docket, Bryan Kohberger. All right, we are now heading into day 3 of motions hearings in the Bryan Kohberger matter. And the testimony this morning, if you've been watching, we've been bringing it to you live on Crime Talk, is the issues regarding the search warrants and how they were obtained. Kind of a snooze, But basically the defense was asking the questions that they're going to have to ask to try and make their argument that probable cause did not exist. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think those motions have about zero chance of succeeding, but the defense is doing what the defense needs to do to zealously represent their client, Bryan Kohberger. Now, the defense team was also trying to keep DNA evidence from being used in his case. Why? Just like we've talked about, the DNA evidence is a terrible piece of evidence for the defense, and you can try to minimize it, but most people are going to say, wow, gee, how did your DNA get onto that particular little sheath button tab on that K-bar? You got some explaining to do. Even though the defendant never has to prove themselves innocent, if you don't have a good explanation for it, how it got there, well, everyday people are going to say, because you were there. Because you were there. What are the odds? The whole attack as it relates to, the Amazon search warrants, the Google search warrants, is because there is bad evidence on there. Now, yesterday's hearing, the first half of it was closed to the public, and then about 2 p.m. a live streamed open up showing the courtroom with obviously Mr. Kohberger in attendance. Now, the next couple of hours went into arguments from both sides. The defense argues the collection and means of discovering the suspect in this case were unlawful and are being hidden from the public. Now, the state of Idaho is arguing that the defendant doesn't have a legal right to privacy in this case due to how it was discovered through this investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG. And that is a method of discovering DNA evidence through a database in which people have uploaded their DNA code. And databases such as GED Match, or Family Tree DNA host the data, with law enforcement having the ability to reference the data in cases where DNA evidence is hard to match or DNA isn't on file, as it was in this particular case. Now, you can do what you want with your DNA. It's yours. But like anything, if you give your passcode out to anybody, be careful what you wish for. I personally would not knowingly give my DNA to any private source because they are more than likely going to sell it, or in this case, give access to it to the police when they think they need it. Anyway, the defense also argues that some of the other evidence in this case should be removed from the trial, and the defense is arguing that law enforcement officers either purposely or recklessly lied or omitted crucial information when they asked the court to issue warrants for the apartment, Bryan Kohberger's house, his parents' house in Pennsylvania, his car, cell phone, and even his own DNA. They want all that to go away. Like I said, as a defense attorney, you file motions to suppress, you try to create an expectation of privacy, and that it was obtained illegally when you want that evidence to disappear. Like I said, the judge in this particular case, is going to, probably not rule from the bench, will written issue orders. And maybe it's just his mannerisms, that's him, but he seems very not interested. Now, I've seen judges like that. They're listening attentively, but I just don't think that the defense has a great legal standing argument as it relates to these issues that they're raising. Now, for their sake, I hope that they're right. It'll certainly make a much interesting trial if the evidence goes away. Now, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. But like I said, as everybody thinks, oh, you're a defense attorney, you got to be all in for the defendant. Or some people say, oh my gosh, for a defense attorney, you seem very pro-prosecution. No, I'm a realist. And what people don't forget, or what people forget oftentimes is that if you look at these cases like you have to advise a client that says, this is bad. This is the bad evidence that we have to deal with. As a defense attorney, you can't ignore the bad facts. Just like Kohberger's attorneys are not trying to avoid the bad facts, they're trying to make those bad facts go away. And so I'm not pro-Kohberger, I'm not anti-Kohberger in any way. I'm just looking at this objectively. I'm telling you, I've tried lots of cases with DNA, and juries, lay jurors, they think that if it's there, it's bad for the defendant. Let's just be realistic. And unless you can explain how it got there in these particular circumstances on this little piece of evidence, it's going to be problematic for the defense in this particular case. Anyway, the motions continue. If you want to watch them live, they are still on CrimeTalk, and you can go back and watch them in their entirety. Some interesting legal arguments. If you're really into the legal nitty-gritty, it's worth watching, but you can see that it is probably not going to go in his favor. Those motions were not written for the trial court. They were written for the appellate courts, and they're just trying to make their record. Next on the docket, at least one woman believes that Richard Allen was not the bridge guy. Let me explain. So we talked about it the other day. Richard Allen's attorneys had filed several documents suggesting that their client's conviction for the 2017 killing of the teenagers of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi, Indiana, should be vacated over key errors that the state made in the entire process. We went through that all yesterday's video. You can check out yesterday's video if you would like to talk about that. But there is one woman that says that, her ex-boyfriend is the one, so to speak. Anyway, Miss Dillman believes that it is her ex, Mr. Logan, who was on that video. She says that she's positive that that is him, and is positive that Mr. Allen is not the bridge guy, but her ex-boyfriend. She's quite certain. She knows his build. She says that the bridge guy looks exactly like him, and I've seen, obviously, and heard his voice, and it sounded like him as well. So, does it matter? No. Did the defense call her as a witness? No. Is it going to be a subject of conversation for years to come? Probably. But the reality of it is that Mr. Allen is going to spend the next 130 years in prison, and Judge Frances Segal is not going to throw out the conviction. She's going to let an appellate court do that if the appellate courts determine that there was something that resulted in an unfair trial. We'll have to wait and see. Next, a Colorado man does some terrible, terrible things to some pets. That's right. Police in Pueblo, Colorado, charged a man this week for sexual exploitation of a child, obviously not good, and sex assault on a child, definitely not good, and animal cruelty. That's right. The charges are in connection to a sexual assault on at least 3 children and several dogs. Now, the individual who's been charged, and he gets the presumption of innocence like everybody does until they plead guilty or are found guilty by a jury of their peers, is Phoenix Moncavez Likes, Likes. Likes. Now, he was arrested on Wednesday. He's on a no bond hold, and he is booked into the county jail. Now, the detectives executed a search warrant on Mr. Likes' home and found child abuse material along with conversations of him sexually assaulting 2 minors. They also found images of bestiality on his phone and later learned of a 3rd child victim, ladies and gentlemen. The sheriff's office said the suspect admitted to the detectives that he had assaulted the children. Now, when I first read this story, I was like, oh, that sounds like my old client that I had down there, almost identical. But different last name. So at least it's not my client reoffending, that's for sure. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, and I don't mean to, I know, okay? I've been doing this a long time. You need to be so careful about the people that hang out with your children. You really, really do. And I'm not talking to you as, Scott Reich, the podcaster. I'm talking to Scott Reich, person to person, based upon my experience in life. I'm telling you, be careful of who you keep or provide access to your children. It is a dangerous, dangerous world out there, and you need to be careful. We'll just leave it at that. All right. Next, a Tennessee teenager who's involved in a road rage incident is found cowering under his bed like a little girl. That's right. I hope this kid gets grounded, regardless of whatever the legal system does with him. Anyway, this Tennessee teenager allegedly fired a shot from his car at a FedEx driver driving a FedEx truck last month. He then eluded police and left them on a 100-mile-per-hour chase. Well, by the end, though, the 17-year-old kid, who has not been named because he is a minor, couldn't outrun the United States Marshals, was nabbed hiding under his bed at his home. Adding insult to injury, guess what? He got his dad arrested as well. Well, because apparently during the investigation, the teen's father, a guy by the name of Ricky Maness, Maness, gave false information about the teen's location. And guess what? They found him under the bed. Apparently when dad said he wasn't there, knowing he was, guess what? That means you lie to federal authorities. You, sir, are now very close to becoming a felon if you were not already. So all this happened about 5:30 p.m. Back in Jackson, Tennessee on December 15th when a teen was driving a pickup truck and nearly struck a FedEx truck, then followed the delivery vehicle. When the ticked-off teenager caught up with the driver, he allegedly fired a shot at him, barely missing the FedEx worker's head and prompting the FedEx driver to call 911. But when the police showed up, the teen hopped on the highway, fled, leading the cops on a high-speed chase. And needless to say, the boy was ultimately caught under his bed, hiding like a little girl, and then booked into the Madison County Juvenile Detention Center while his father was being held at the Adult Detention Center. The arrest is made by the United States Marshals Service. Good for them. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to tell you. That kid is on a quick path to the Department of Corrections. And on this day in legal history, that's right, January 24th, 1968, the United States Supreme Court heard argument in United States v. O'Brien. You say, I haven't heard of that case before. Well, it's not a big one that you talk about much anymore because people aren't burning their draft cards. But it was a case concerning the constitutionality of a federal law prohibiting the destruction of draft cards. Now, the court ultimately upheld that law, ruling that the government's interest in maintaining an efficient draft system outweighed the individual's symbolic speech rights, thereby refining the limits of free speech under the First Amendment. And on this day, January 24th, 1989, Ted Bundy, who we've talked about a lot here, we've even interviewed his former defense counsel when he was up in Pitkin County years ago. But Ted Bundy was ultimately sentenced to the electric chair after being convicted of multiple murders. So he was executed in the electric chair. Needless to say, lots of people have been fascinated with the story of Ted Bundy as it relates to the death penalty, interstate criminal investigations, and the psychology of, obviously, serial offenders. He was one of the biggest, and he was also a total narcissist, according to his former defense attorney. And then on this date in 2018, former USA Gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassar was sentenced to 40 to 175 years in prison for sexually assaulting numerous athletes under the guise of medical treatment. And oh yeah, they paid big money for that as well, the U.S. Gymnastics Association. But, you know, he was a good guy. He was a trusted guy. Everybody trusted. Even though everybody made everybody feel a little weird and icky inside, they let him stick around for years because he was the trusted doctor, just a good guy volunteering his time. And finally today, our dumb criminals of the day. Please meet Diane Clausen and William Jeannot. You may say, how did they get in trouble? Well, apparently they were in Key West, Florida. And at about midnight or so, the police officers were doing their normal patrol when they spotted a woman apparently bent over in front of a man who was thrusting his hips back and forth while they were in front of a pet grooming business. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, when the police officers arrived, Mr. Jeannot put his private parts back inside of his pants, and Miss Clausen pulled down her dress. Apparently she was disheveled, according to the police statements, with her bodysuit undone. Now, Jeannot and Clausen were subsequently arrested for committing lascivious acts with another person in a public place. They were booked into the Monroe County Jail on misdemeanor charges and ultimately released. Now, hey, Mr. Jeannot and Miss Clausen, we all get it. But in front of on a main street, you couldn't have gone to an alley or something to make it a little more romantic? Are you kidding me? What are you thinking? Anyway, January 24th, you are a dumb criminals of the day. It's early in the year. You should be honored by making these acts the dumb criminal conduct of the day that got you here. Congratulations, you made it. All right, that's all we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday. And remember, the Constitution matters.